active 8 million views. This video went from me watching it at, I think it was 12 views, to now sitting at over 8 million views. Various organizations and education activists have been vocal about the controversial 30% pass rate to be scrapped, as they believe it affects the South African educational system. In terms of the National Senior Certificate pass mark, the Minister of Education, His Matric, addressed the debate. Motshekga said people need to be informed about the educational system and clarified that the 30% mark is a minimum requirement for a single subject. The question still remains: is the 30% pass mark there to lead students to failure? So, joining us this morning to delve into this controversial topic is Dr. Paul Charles, an influential figure at the intersection of academia and business development, achieved global acclaim with the 2023 Investor in People Award in Dubai for pioneering resilient learning, possessing a doctorate in psychology. His research on cognitive behavioral therapy principles have been instrumental in developing resilience models across diverse sectors. It's a pleasure and an honor to have him in studio. Dr. Paul Charles, a very good morning to you and welcome to the Breakfast Rush.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here and I'm happy to be here.
So before we get into the gist of the entire, interview, who is Paul Charles?
I'm from Durban. I grew up in KwaZulu-Natal. And my story is nothing phenomenal in terms of, it's not extraordinary in the sense that I come from a rich family or a very prosperous background. I come from a family of 10 children.
Yes.
I was removed from my family when I was around 8 or 9 years old. I lived in the Lake Haven Children's Home, which is not far from the studio.
Not at all.
I lived in the Valley View Place of Safety and Detention, which was more detention than safety at that time, just down the road here. I lived in a youth center for delinquent boys in Chatsworth. And I lived in my matric year. I basically slept in the bus rank in Verulam, going to school every day. Nobody knew. I don't like the idea of garnering sympathy for yourself. It just messes your mind a bit.
Yes.
So I did it until people found out late, until it was a very, very rainy night. I was soaking wet. I went to a friend's house and they took me in. I stayed there for a few months actually. And then I went back because I didn't want to be a burden to anyone. And it just so happened I managed to pass school. And the reason why I'm excited about passing high school is that I know the value of it. I know the value of passing matric. It is that gateway to whatever opportunity you want after that. And there are people who might undermine it or undervalue it. But for those who know its value, and have a background like I have, which is most people in our country and in the world, I think they would also appreciate it.
Before Nesmira goes to the next question, you've opened the door to this one here, and I see your story as something that is extremely motivating.
Absolutely.
How does somebody who's grown up, call it within the system, to put it lightly, go from sleeping at the bus rank, doing matric, to being a global leader? To being somebody who's now sitting with his doctorate, leading a course for education globally?
Well, I used to read a lot. I used to read a lot. We had no vacations, obviously. So I used to read a lot. Interestingly, during the year end or mid-year, I used to walk through the dumps that would be maybe in Silver Glen Nature Reserve. There's a dump there or wherever. And I used to find old UNISA books that students used to throw away. I was just in high school, maybe primary school also. So I used to read books that dealt with criminology, psychology, education. So my mind just opened simply because I loved reading. And I read a lot. I mean, if you go to, I was a member of, I think, 4 public libraries at the same time.
Wow.
Because I had nothing else to do. And I realized that the reading just opened my mind to a whole new world. So even though I might have slept in the bus rank, in that bus shelter. Maybe I slept maybe when I slept at the train station, my body was there, but I can tell you my mind was not there.
And that is the beauty of the human mind.
Doctor, what is your overview of South Africa's education system?
I believe that South Africa, as South Africans, I'm a South African, I want to clarify that. I believe that we have a very intellectually arrogant system. Okay. We want to assume that our system is superior to many systems in the world. And that's a problem with comparing. When you compare yourself or a system or an ideology, you are always going to appear superior or inferior. But my idea is, let's not compare. Let's just evaluate our system as it is and see how we can improve it. Every system can be improved. Yes. Every system, including our education system. I enjoy our education system. My children went through the public schools and private schools here in South Africa. Okay, my son is now in the Philippines studying business. My daughter is a medical doctor in Australia.
Wow, lovely.
All right. So, she was accepted to study medicine here. And then I think in the third or fourth round, they told her she couldn't because she's Indian. We have a quota system in our country. That's a different discussion. But our education system, I applaud our education system. I know the CEO of Umalusi, Dr. Mafu Rakometsi. He's a champion of quality education. And in my discussions with him, I believe that our education system is good as it is, but it can be better.
You're listening to Dr. Paul Charles with us in studio this morning. We're talking about a video of his that had gone viral, absolutely viral, where he was standing and talking with a group of matriculants, I believe it was, and just sharing his thoughts on the 30% pass mark. So we've opened that door to conversation as well, where we're asking you, the listener, now to share your thoughts on the 30% pass mark here in South Africa, your thoughts, your feelings around that. Last month, a snippet of a talk that you had delivered at a school made the rounds on social media, garnering almost 8 million views on various different platforms. Can you give us a brief background into the talk that you delivered?
I was substitute teaching at a school in Pretoria, and I could not finish my lessons during the allocated time. So I requested that instead of me repeating myself to every class that I had to go to, why don't we get all of them together? And it was during that time that this recording took place. What's amazing about the recording is that I didn't have to convince any of them. I didn't have to convince them. Actually, I posed the question, but the answer came from them. And if you watch the video, you'll notice a moment of absolute silence. After the learner said, the 30% has been constructed merely to get us in and out of the system. That response never come from, it was in my mind, but it never come from me. It came from the student. And that's what made it more exciting. And for me, that moment made me realize that I am speaking to a group of people who know. They know. But it's just that our expectation of them has been so low, it has made them believe that it is okay to aim low. But as the author of Resilient Learning, Dr. Leandra, says in a book, she says that the problem with us, many of us fail in school, is not because we aim too high and miss. It's because we aim too low and hit. Our expectations are so low. And we are successful in meeting that expectation, which is actually set. So we are passing, but actually we are passing, and that is a setup for failure in the world. Just think about it. We have 20, how many alphabets how many letters in the alphabet?
Generally speaking, 26. Generally.
But imagine you take away the vowels of the alphabet, A, E, I, O, U, just 5 of them. You take it off and you think, it's just 5. But it is that 5 that makes everything else make sense.
Absolutely.
I flew here from Joburg last night. Can you imagine if the pilot was awesome in taking off, but he didn't know how to land the plane? We are in a problem. So our young people are actually in a problem if they settle for this 30%. My drive, my passion, the heat that is in me
Yes.
is I cannot do anything to change the 30%. And I don't want to divert attention to that. I want to say whether the pass rate is 30%, 20%, or 10%, we must encourage our children to aim as high as possible.
30% mark. Most parents would agree that not knowing 70% of your work is a horrible idea. And that's exactly what knowing only 30% means. Khadija, Salam, there is no pass mark. Learners must be pushed from one grade to another, as the department does not want to waste money on slow learners. If you fail a learner, the department adjusts the result to a pass. We're in studio and in conversation with Dr. Paul Charles. We gave a little bit of a background to that video just moments before the ad break. Now, Doc, in the clip, you make it clear that the 30% pass mark was only designed to get learners out of the system. Please elaborate for us.
Many people will have different views on this, but we need to realize that this was designed by politicians. And the politicians are, their mindset, firstly, I don't know how they think, but in this sense, it's very clear that the idea behind the 30% was to get us out of the system as quick as possible. And if people don't believe that, you would see that we also have a system where we progress learners through the system. The whole system is designed like a factory line where you come in and you must go out. The problem with that is that in the whole process, quality is compromised. Now, you might wear your jacket with less quality. That's okay. But we're talking about children here. We're talking about the future leaders of our country. And if they are processed instead of properly progressing as learners, then we have a problem. I remember when my daughter was in Matric.
Yes.
She told me, Dad, what's the point of this Matric? My son used to tell me, Dad, school is for losers.
Oh, my word.
Right? But he's in university now.
Yes.
Right? I used to tell them the one thing that the Matric gives you, it gives you options. And the higher your grade, the more options you have. Now, nobody can contest that.
Absolutely.
Okay? Nobody can contest that. So when we are encouraging a lower grade, whether it's 30% or whatever, when your child passes with a lower grade, you need to realize their options are drastically reduced. And as a result of that, we are locking them into a cycle of poverty and steering some of them towards a life of crime. So all the ills of society that we are talking about, we are actually fueling it by our low expectations.
So in essence, you were saying that the current education system prioritizes quantity over quality. What would the consequences be for the learners?
Well, the consequences is not something that we can imagine or we have to dream about. We are living that consequences.
Correct.
When you see the unemployment, you see, we just came out of elections, right? Okay. The mantra of all political parties was unemployment. You trace it back. You'll find out that most of those who are unemployed, it's because of a lack of a good education or no education. We had political parties were talking about crime. Trace it back. It all boils down to how our children are groomed in school, whether it is poverty, whether it is crime, or whatever the ills are of society that we are experiencing right now. It's because of this low expectations that we have. And politicians also, with all due respect, okay, I hope I'm protected. With all due respect to politicians also, they think that we don't think as a people. But when we flighted this video, I was so excited that it was not boosted, it was not paid advertisement, nothing. People realize that we need to be thinking. And I'm so proud of South Africans after this video. I realize that we are a thinking people. And when you apply your mind to what is happening in the school system at the moment, no thinking parent, and I'm saying this very politely and humbly, no thinking parent wants their child to scrape pass in school or to fail. We don't send our children to school to fail. We want them to pass, but pass with a good enough pass so that they might live a better life and the country might improve. So whatever we are experiencing now, it's not going to go away if we don't encourage excellence in terms of academic performance. We have to. The onus is on us. You know, this change that everyone is talking about coming in the future, it's not coming to us. We are the change we have been hoping and praying for.
Absolutely.
You know, I want those words to sit in your mind for a second, whether you're in the car, whether you're in the kitchen, your lounge, if you're already in the office. We are the change. Let those words sit in your mind for a second and just grow some roots, maybe. Dr. Charles, in the clip, there is a part that speaks about how some educators are just tolerating disruptive learners as they know that sooner or later they will be out of the system. Do you believe teachers are adequately equipped to support students' long-term success?
This is a very interesting question. And actually, it's not left up to my opinion. My opinion on this does not matter. The Minister of Education issued a statement saying that our teachers, not all of them are qualified to teach. That is clear in South Africa. I'm not saying that the majority of them are not qualified to teach, but I'm saying that not all of them are qualified to teach. So you can imagine the quality of teaching them. All right. That's the first thing. The second thing is I've been in the classroom. So I'm not speaking as someone who is imagining things. I've been in the classroom. And let me tell you, I've had learners using bad words on me. I cannot use those words on air at the moment. But I have had learners swearing me, coming up to me and being almost violent to me. Thankfully, I think my hair distracted them a bit. But when they come up to me, it is a difficult job to maintain classroom discipline today. So first off, I want to say hats off, kudos to those teachers who are still in the classroom in spite of this. Now, the system in South Africa disempowers an educator in the classroom. Now, that disempowerment restricts them, restrains them. And as a result, their hands are tied for certain things that they can or cannot do. So if a learner is disruptive, it's okay. I'll tolerate you. It's a matter of time you'll get out of the system. Previously, we could scold the children. Now, if you scold them, parents are coming to school and scolding the principal for this kind of behavior. I was there when parents came screaming in the school for ridiculous things, and the children are just standing there knowing that the parents are supporting them. You know, previously, there was a wonderful partnership between the teacher, between the parent and the learner. You go home and complain about your teacher, you will get it at home. And
at
you know
home
what
as
I mean
well.
when I say you'll get it.
Six of
Why?
the best.
Because the teacher was considered an extension of parenting also.
Absolutely.
So this triangle is an important triangle to have in the education system: the parents, the learners, and the students. I call them equal partners in education. About the teachers, not all teachers are qualified. Let's not pretend that they are.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's not. Even the teaching assistants, I think over 700,000 of them in the country at the moment, they are not qualified to be teaching assistants. So let's get it right. Let's not pretend.
On the subject, and as you're saying this at the moment, message that comes through now says, hi, just listening to the Breakfast Rush, and I want to point out that for students to get better results, we actually need to have better teachers or better teaching methods, because it's usually the students that can afford to go for extra tuition that get good results, and those who can't afford after school tuition, that, don't get great results.
But you listen to that comment carefully. It says those who can afford will go for tuition and
Yes.
get better results.
Mhm.
Yes.
You know what this means? This is excluding the majority of students because the majority of South Africans cannot afford tuition.
Take it to the top of that message where they say we need better teachers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a better teacher, you're not going to have better students, right?
Absolutely.
As the learners are aware of the minimum percentage they have to meet, and you will get those that will strive just to achieve that 30% mark. What are the consequences when they apply to institutions of higher learning?
I don't even have to think for this question.
Yeah.
You are rejected. That's
Finished.
just
That's it.
outright rejection. I've sat on university boards, where we evaluate applications. And the sad reality is the first thing you look at is their academic transcript.
Right.
Those who do not meet the requirement, their application is dumped in the waste paper basket, not to be picked up later, but to be collected and trashed out. Why? Because you don't meet the minimum requirements. You see, in every enterprise, whether it is in education or work, there are certain prerequisites that must be met. For us to get university entrance for the pursuit that we want, you have to meet certain minimum requirements.
Right.
And whether we like it or not, those minimum requirements are tied to the matric pass. So for me, and I've told my children this many times. I told my daughter, Leandra, who's a doctor now, I told her, Leandra, listen, my girl, you can't change the system, but be smart about it. Use the system to your advantage. The system says 30% for a subject you can get and you can pass.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean to say you need to adopt that mindset. Aim higher. And I told her, we are living in a global world now. We're living in a global world. We can't just continue to think that we are local anymore. And when she was in her class, I actually took my child out of a school where she was getting 90% in physics. And I put her into a school where she cried because her first mark was 51%. I took her out of that school. She never talked to me for a few months, my daughter. I was in Baltimore, USA. I received a call and she was crying. She says, Dad, I got 51% in physics. And yet I was getting 90% in my other school. I said, baby, in your next test, get 52%. That's all I'm asking. For me, we need to encourage progress, not perfection. If you have a mindset that is geared towards progress, you know that you will be in a mode of constantly learning. And I told her, she was shocked because she thought I'm going to scold her.
Yeah.
This is my daughter this year. That 51%, I think she got from my side, my part of the genes. But she did 52 and she graduated in Matric with 6 distinctions. And she was accepted into medical school. And I told her, Leandra, don't think that the people you will continue to study with will be the same people in your classroom. You will continue. You will compete with Chinese, Japanese, Indians. You will compete with Americans in the world. At that time, she must have thought, "Dear, what are you talking about?" But coincidentally, she was accepted into medical school in Australia, and exactly as I told her was the cohort of her student batch. So we need to train our children with a global mindset, not just a local mindset. And it starts with us as parents. I gave up the idea of blaming the government. Government can be blamed for many things. But as parents, we cannot, we should not, we must not abdicate our responsibility because this is my child. It's not a government's child. This is my child. And I must do everything I can to help this child excel. Now, and one caller sent a comment about the tuition. Why must only rich children go for tuition and those who can afford it? What does that mean for poor people? Like when I was growing up, I never go for tuition in any way. And can you imagine the hundreds and thousands and millions of students who can't go for tuition?
Absolutely.
What's going to happen to them? Their options are reduced and their future is dismal.
Doctor, what has been the response from learners that you've spoken with when it draws on them that the education system might not necessarily be building them up to be hungry for knowledge and success?
Well, firstly, the learners are shocked in the beginning, but when it sinks in, they realize that this is not in their best interest to aim for the minimum requirement, the minimum pass mark. They know it is not in their best interest. I've never underestimated the capacity of a young person to understand the implications of aiming low. I've never underestimated that. I believe young people have the capacity to understand it and also to aim higher. You know, the thing about school is that most of the knowledge we use in school, we don't use. I mean, let's face it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not arguing that. But there's one thing you get from school. School prepares you for the world in this sense. School teaches you, helps you to develop a thirst for learning. And striving for a higher grade means that you're applying your mind and learning. The biggest skill now is the skill on how to learn. And school gives you that perfect opportunity to develop the skill on how to learn, so that when you leave school, because when you leave school, even after you get your degree, you still have to learn. I told him, hey, Matthew, listen here, my son, you will get your business degree. But when you come back here, you need to know something that you still have to learn what I am going to teach you in order to do this business. So you have to be in a constant mode of learning, unlearning, and relearning. That triad is very important. And when we encourage a 30% pass mark for our children, we are telling them, you don't have to learn. But when I'm telling children, aim higher, I'm encouraging them to trigger that catalyst, that capacity to learn. Because once you have that mindset to constantly improve, aim higher, learn and grow, that attitude, that spirit taken into the real world outside school will make them successful. Contributors instead of mere recipients of help from society. I've lived my whole life holding my hand as a child, waiting for someone to help me
you.
because I was born in poverty. I can tell you now, I don't do that anymore, simply because I'm an educated person. And it's not because of my doctor of psychology degree or my master's degree in education. It's not because of my bachelor's degree in theology. It's because of my matric pass. I passed matric. And that opened a world of opportunity. I wish people would understand
the
that.
concrete foundation that you need to lay for the rest of your existence is right there at grade 12.
As your matric.
When
we talk about resilient learning, what do we mean?
Resilient learning, if you take the word first, resilience means basically that capacity to bounce back, and not bounce back to your original state, but to a higher state and a better state. So when we coined the phrase resilient learning, it was to give the message that any learner can improve. Regardless of your previous performance, any learner can pass. Learning, of course, it's the idea for constant growth and improvement. So when we say resilient learning is a program that was designed by Dr. Leandra, my daughter. I am the co-author of the program. And it's a program that has been designed to help learners excel in school. We invested about 24 million rands in this program, testing it in 8 countries. Not a single student in 8 countries, whether it was India, America, Kenya, UAE, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Australia, not a single person who went through the resilient learning program remained at the same grade, but they've improved by 2 grades upwards. Resilient learning is not a tuition program. It's a coaching program. Tuition will teach you your subject matter, that portion. But resilient learning focuses on developing the individual by activating the capacity to learn. Okay, and that capacity to learn, all of us have. It needs to be activated, and that's what the program does. And by the way, we offered it to South Africa for free.
Yeah.
It's still offered for free in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
We only ask the schools to pay the back-end IT support, which is so nominal, it's negligible.
Right.
We offered it for free. The program cost us about 8 million rands to develop, firstly.
Mm-hmm.
We tested it in 8 countries, costing us 24 million rands.
Mm-hmm.
We are giving it for free to all schools without exception in South Africa, because we believe the future of this country is not in parliament. The future of this country is in our schools, in the classrooms.
Absolutely.
We want to change South Africa, and I believe that we found the formula. Help our students excel in school.
Absolutely.
Doc, as we've got 2 minutes to go to our main news bulletin, really briefly, what are your words of wisdom to learners that are in the system at the moment? How should they approach their subjects?
I would tell every single learner who is in school now what the author of Resilient Learning said at the launch of her book. She said, discipline is not a bad word.
Mm-hmm.
Discipline is a good word. It is only disciplined people who are successful.
It's only disciplined people that are successful. Another gem for you to keep in your mind as we get through the day. As we end the program this morning, Doc, any closing statements from you?
I'd like to say that it's not our intentions actually that determine our destination. It's the direction that we take. You can have good intentions, but arrive at a different direction that you didn't have, destination that you did not have in your mind. And I believe wholeheartedly, because it has been tried, tested, and proven, that resilient learning is the direction that we should take in order for us to arrive at the destination of 100% pass rate in Matric, which I believe is possible. That's my word to close, if I may say so.
So there are a fair amount of listeners right now asking for contact details for the program that you've just mentioned briefly a moment ago. Is this a program that individuals can enter into, or is it something that you're offering to an education department?
This program is available to all schools for all learners for free. So you can go onto our website, resilientlearning.co.za, or you can send me a WhatsApp message. This is such a personal thing for me that I don't really give my business telephone number. I give my own personal telephone number because I want people to get in touch with me and hear it from me.
Okay.
My number is 071 471 0711 071 471 0711.
071-471-0711 is the WhatsApp number that you could use to get in contact with Dr. Paul Charles. Sir, it's been a pleasure having you in studio and listening to you speak so passionately on a subject that I hold very close to my heart, and that is education. And most definitely, education is a journey that obviously starts when we're just tiny, but ends when our life ends, because education for me is a journey that is from cradle to grave. So thank you very much. It's been such a pleasure listening to you speak so passionately on the subject. Hasina's asking, where can I obtain the book?
We've discontinued the book because we've designed it into an online coaching program, which is available for free to everyone.
There you go. Resilientlearning.co.za. Ladies and gentlemen, you go there. Thank you very much for making your time here today. I know that you flew in from Johannesburg just to speak to the Breakfast Rush. And coincidentally, he's meeting with some big business CEO later.
Thank you, Ismail. It was my privilege to be here.
Nazmira, some final words from you this morning?
This was brilliant. For someone that is literally leaving this building in the next 5 minutes, going into a classroom, and then spending the next 6-7 hours in that classroom. And then from that classroom, I go into a madrasa, which is another classroom. This is incredible. And I think it extends the classroom. Look, it's important for teachers, parents, anyone that is involved in the life of a child to have this information. But as South African citizens, this information that you have given us, I think is brilliant and it's life-changing. And until then, be the best version of you.
That's it for the Breakfast Rush for this morning. I do hope that you've enjoyed it. Remember, resilientlearning.co.za. You can find them on Facebook as well. They've got a huge presence out there. From me to you, do good, be good. Till the next time.
In order to get good grades, you need a good coach. And since everyone can't afford a good coach, we have Resilient Learning, which is the online academic coaching program.
We are that coach.
We are that coach,
Yes.
right? And because of technology, we are able to reach any child, any student,
their space.
At their own
Pace.
in their own time,
Yeah.
in their own space, and help them excel. So Resilient Learning is that coaching program that prepares a student to study and do well and handle life well, get better grades, and when they get better grades, especially when they're exiting high school, that better grades gives them options. And in having options, therein lies our freedom.
Yes.
Sometimes we
And happiness.
put it here. I like it.
My name is Dr. Leandra Charles, and I'm the lead author of Resilient Learning. Throughout my academic journey, my parents were coaching me along the way, and the principles of resilient learning that I've written about are the same principles that they have shared with me that have brought me to where I am today. Not everyone can afford an academic coach, and that is why we designed Resilient Learning, to help every student wherever they are and regardless of what they can afford. If you are a school that cares about your learners, join the Resilient Learning tribe today and let us walk with you towards your success.